If immortality was granted to 1 million individuals worldwide, what would be a fair selection process? I'd make sure they actually want to live forever first. Of course, we have to talk about the repercussions. The sun will burn out. You will be left on a frozen planet, or vaporized, I guess. To know how that'll go, I would assume life forever means you are stuck there, cold and dark, forever. So the biggest assholes thought it's a punishment. The sun will consume Earth eventually, so that might be unpleasant for a long time until it burns out, or hopefully we manage to get off planet before then so you can hitch a ride off planet to a new one every so often. But again, long times of boredom and isolation between landfalls. Ah yes, surviving the planet getting vaporized sounds cool. The fuel to get to another planet around another sun that is inhabitable and could allow for a leapfrog is probably so vast that you would never make it. I way prefer this question as a punishment scenario. The outcomes and misery of such an event sound crazy. Just the maddening time scale of it would warp a normal person's mind, I would think, as well. Madness would undoubtedly take over, or they would reach a new level of thinking in that amount of time. Obviously, with that amount of time, a solar sail would be the easiest way to travel and something we can do now, but just getting or hitting a target would be nuts if KS speed has taught me anything. You would be surprised what human beings will tolerate. The immortals would still have to live in groups, however. Isolation is one of the things that do drive humans unavoidably mad. The Boat of a Million Years by Poul Anderson is a very good read. If the immortal men are circumcised, their foreskins will regenerate. Speculation on recurrent intactness among women is left unanswered, with the possibility of the female hymen likewise restoring itself having been brought up at one point during dialogue in the novel. What about permanent loss? When I said live in groups, I meant with other immortals. People can live through the loss of a loved one, but I wouldn't like anyone to be tested that way for the rest of their existence. It seems they would eventually, after trillions of years, end up in a slowly evaporating black hole, which would be pretty miserable, and I don't imagine you'd be able to communicate with your companions in there. And on the timescale of eternity, the trillions of years to get there would be just a relative blink of an eye. If you are going to live forever, the time to travel from planet to another, at any speed, is not very long in the grand scheme of things. Reverie of the Jaunt by Stephen King. The stars. My destination is better, and where King got the idea. I have always loved the idea of immortality and what it entails. How at worst it would mean seeing the end of the Earth, the Sun, our solar system, requiring the adaptability to stay ahead of the inevitable uncountable time of excruciating pain when you can make it to the next suitable environment. How you will need to figure out travel as the universe expands endlessly, as we understand it so far, to continue living until the inevitable heat death of the universe, and then after the death of everything, until what comes after, and after sign fine. And through all that you have to manage to retain your sanity? Despite all of that incomprehensible stuff happening, I 100% still wish for immortality. To experience unending lifetimes of events and cultures, to see similarities and uniqueness each and every time. The only thing I would fear is predictability, to reach a point where nothing is a new discovery. Reaching complete and total knowledge would be bittersweet. Knowing I have no end, I hope I can find a way to erase my memories and start over randomly to again see the thrill as before. Hell yeah, this stuff is fascinating. On a different level, I've been thinking how with immortality your brain neuron synapses wouldn't deteriorate. So if you're immortal, would your physiology stay the same, or would it become something like Captain America or Wolverine or something? Not necessarily super strength, just extraordinary resiliency. And then maybe enhanced cognition due to the amount of knowledge you would acquire after living thousands of years with zero mental deterioration. How to get around in space is easy. 3 wise boys once told me, when you're not in space, it push you backward. We found another immortal boss. Great work. Get this one hooked up to the next unit and get to bleeding it. Oh yes, the Ajin route. One of my favorite young adult book series deals with that. The main characters of the novel end up being introduced to a bunch of old mythological gods and people from the past, including Gilgamesh. Yes, from the epic. He was somehow granted immortality and ended up being over or close 10,000 years old at this point. Totally lost his mind and was a confused, sad mess. His brain couldn't handle being alive for that long, and all the information it collected over the years burned out his memory to the point where he couldn't formulate any concrete new ones for the last few centuries. I've come across some thought experiments based around this or similar questions, and experts seem to think that the human mind just simply isn't wired for this. Essentially, it would either start to lose all of the older memories and only remember the about last 150 years or so, and so being immortal is essentially irrelevant because the you that exists now would not be the same you that exists 1,000 years from now, so essentially you would have died a long time ago. Or the mind would just tear itself apart, not being able to deal with the memories it was trying to keep with making new ones. the way it commits short-term memory to long-term memory. Essentially, you would run out of storage space, causing fragmentation errors in your actual brain. I want to say it was a YT video and some papers online from back in the day talking with neuroscientists, but it was fascinating stuff I'm probably half remembering right at best. I could imagine an immortal couple boning repeatedly in space until they find a new inhabitable planet with people in it. Eventually, cars stopped thinking. I would presume we could figure out a way to put them to sleep when the mission starts. Well, either that or generational ships. I think a few politicians should be first in line. And no, I am sure he just wants them in front of the sun in the to be vaporized line. I've thought before that after millennia your brain may begin to change and you can access a larger or unknown portion of it. Lots of madness like you mentioned, but after you came to terms with it you would naturally become a higher being that hasn't existed before. An interesting thought, because with immortality your brain neuron synapses wouldn't deteriorate. So if you're immortal, would your physiology stay the same, or would it become something like Captain America or something? Not necessarily super strength, just extraordinary resiliency, and eventually enhanced cognition like you're talking about. Big PP for sure. What about a reactor? I'm pretty sure you would find out how to turn your brain off if you had to live for 1 billion years. Like, your body may still be alive, but you could probably just reach nirvana and space out sleep for the rest of eternity. This sounds like the best explanation for an absent god. You're immortal. You don't need an inhabitable world. Just any world where you want be frozen or vaporized. A planet similar to Mars would do. Time is a non-issue as well, at least until entropy kills off the universe, which will be a substantially large amount of time, and with 1 million immortals, society would likely never cease. Sorry if this has been pointed out, but fuel isn't much of a factor, actually. No need to fire the engines after you reach escape velocity with near enough zero friction. Once in a while to correct for the odd gravitational pull from unanticipated sources maybe. The issue is time. Even at near relativistic speeds, we're not talking about a few weeks or months here. Given people's reaction to social distancing, I'm pretty sure you'd arrive insane. Ah yes, but have you thought about all of the alien kochi? Immortality doesn't necessarily preclude pain and other torturous sensations. Well, you're immortal, right? So just get slingshot in exactly the right direction, closest to the speed of light possible, then wait a couple million years. Quick math. Probably screwed this up, but I was super curious. Closest inhabitable planet is 4 light years. That's 2.351 x 10^13 miles. Space shuttle orbits at 17,500 miles per hour. So let's say you can maintain that. At said pace, we are talking 1,343,428,571 hours. Divided by 24 is 55,976,190 days. Divided by 365, you have about 153,359 years to wait. Slingshot world record I found was 141 miles per hour. Same math process. I get 19,033,971 years. I did some Google. New Horizons, which blew by Pluto at 52,000 miles per hour, could reach said planet in 54,000 years. Space is just crazy. It's so big and empty. Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate the effort, but assuming this immortality also grants invulnerability to an extent, you could probably get to a way higher speed till you coalesce into the core of another sun planet as it forms upgrades. But we need to keep the question in mind. It's not invincibility, it's immortality. They can still die, it just won't be of natural causes. Assuming fuel will be necessary, fuel is only necessary for accelerating in space. Velocity is uniform and less affected by gravitational pull. But you live forever. You could spend 100,000 years studying from ground up and have full knowledge of the universe, quantum and metaphysics. You are basically a god who can make anything out of anything. You could spend another 100,000 years terraforming a planet and filling it with custom-made organisms. You'd probably be full of cancer from so many years of the sun. You could be in never-ending agony. So you kind of have to assume immortality is invulnerability and healing factor, otherwise you get that creepy story where people on an island gain immortality from getting bit by a fly and are then sold as diamonds after thousands of years. What story is this? Was hoping someone would have the link found at the http://www.lightspeedmagazine.com fiction, The Island of the Immortals. Thank you. I love short SF stories. It was great. If you're the kind of person that just makes assumptions about the terms of your immorality contract, then I have no pity for you. Or the Greek mythology about the guy that lived forever being hunched over into a grasshopper, or the forever young guy being forever asleep, could figure out how to engineer a healing factor similar to Deadpool's or Wolverine's, which would kill the cancer as fast or faster than it can form. Deadpool's cancer is just as fast as his healing factor. He's constantly in pain and has gone insane. Sorry, I forgot about that. You feel pain as well then? I thought immortality also meant you don't feel pain. Not saying you're wrong, I just thought that. I think that's invulnerable. You can be immortal and still feel pain. Exactly, vampires are immortal, but they can still feel pain. Some exceptions. Dio, you can get cancer because you would be immoral. Says who? I'm assuming we'd feel no pain or anything. Like if you're immortal then nothing can kill you. Why would you assume that you'd feel no pain? I'd build a red dwarf solar system with a planet in the habitable zone and a frozen one a bit further out for later. A red dwarf system should last till near the end of the universe, so should be a good place to hold over. The topic said immortality, not omniscience. You are working with a single human mind for eternity. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast 2 days ago. What makes you think a person can remember something they read 10,000 years ago? The only rules are the rules of the universe, and we as humans don't even know a fraction of it yet. But even with the minuscule understanding we already have, there is nothing that says you can just expand your brain indefinitely or make something that works even better and slowly migrate your consciousness. Yeah, but like you said, we don't have complete information regarding the universe and its rules. Why not base your ideas on what we do know instead, since everything else is kind of unknowable at this point? But I did. Nothing I said is impossible even today. The only thing stopping it is time and resources. In this case we have infinite time to generate infinite resources. What? Your whole comment was about the impossible things we can't do today. Transferring consciousness, expanding the brain, even terraforming is just an idea right now, and seeing as we have only ever been to the moon. But you wouldn't do that. You'd eat a lot of hot dogs and jack off mostly. There's a million people though. Let's not forget that humans would eventually adapt and evolve to their new planet. Mars has lower gravity, so they'd likely get taller, etc. So you would be stuck as a 21st century human, a living fossil, so eventually you'd run out of partners willing to sleep with the primitive creature if nothing else. There's also learning the new languages that may or may not be based on the one you're familiar with. Food. Cattle would take a while to start up, so a decent burger could be a century out depending on circumstances like are you first to the new planet and have to terraform, etc. Also, how would memory work? Would your brain get an upgrade too? If it doesn't, you'll lose your memories of who family and friends were, your childhood pets, things you used to love and enjoy, as your brain makes space for stuff happening in your relative present. You may hold on to a few precious shreds of memories, but each time you remember something, it breaks the memory a bit, as you're not remembering the thing, you're remembering the last time you remembered it. Yes, I have thought a lot about this. Wouldn't that mean that the more you think about a memory the quicker it will break? Yes and no. Yes, details get lost or changed a little each time. Like the color of someone's shirt goes from purple to blue over iterations, or uncle drove a 67 Camaro, not a 69 Camaro, but there's an association most of us have with the number 69, so the model year becomes 69. No BC, it's kinda like keeping it in your brain's recently viewed tab. Not a great example. Disclaimer, not in any kind of field that studies or deals with the brain memory. Just a guy that likes biology and science. Actually, the sun won't get to Earth, it'll just cook it. It'll get to Venus though. Odd, I knew we would all be very dead. I thought it got all the way out to us, but it had been a while since I looked up the exact figures. Anyways, cheers mate. It wouldn't be so boring. You'd have the company of 999,999 other immortals, who says you would get along with them more, that you would still be on speaking terms with them. But you do have a point. Hopefully at least a few of them are cool and you can get a sick game of D&D going on while you have endless time to kill. Question is, who is going to DM? If you can't find one decent person in a pool of 1 million randomly selected individuals. The problem is with you, well, unpleasant. The question doesn't say anything about feeling pain. Imagine being alive and able to feel but not dying while the sun consumes the earth. Or for the millennial before that, where it's so hot that everything is boiling. Yeah, that would be part of the question for immortality. Would you be able to feel anything that would be lethal or beyond your current pain tolerance? Currently I know what a 10 on my pain scale is because I black out from the pain. Wouldn't you be pissed if the human race reached the singularity and ascended and left you behind, as you weren't evolved enough and were like a caveman from their point of view? True, but at that point in time you might be kept around as some sort of museum exhibit, fancy pet. Could be better, could be worse. Us finding out the sun is expanding is probably something humans will treat like global warming. That's tomorrow people's problem. I mean, you are not wrong. But we are talking beyond tomorrow people's problems and a few 100,000 years, I think, before we really need to start panicking. That's pretty short term in the timeline of infinity. And hey, you could theoretically just grab or be strapped to the side of the rocket. The sun will never consume Earth. The sun's center of gravity will increase and so will the orbit of the Earth. Once that happens, the sun will shrink back down into its current size and then turn into a hyper-naked star core. The Earth will be flung off into space during that. Just do your best to swim to Mars and hang out. We can't even do that now. Why believe we could do that ever? I'm sure if we had till then we'd definitely manage it, but the next ice age we make with global warming will probably stop that. I always imagine immortality being more so not aging or getting sick, but still being able to die. And yes, I realize that's not really immortal. Just where my head goes in these situations, humanity went from the first modern humans, Homo sapiens, to low Earth orbit being routine in around 100,000 years. We have about 1 billion years before the sun's output increases enough to make Earth inhospitable. Given our past track record, I'd be willing to bet on us getting off this rock long before it gets cooked, or we'll get all nostalgic and just boost the Earth into a wider orbit as needed and hang out with our sun for a couple billion more years. Unless we monumentally fuck up, we can take a mulligan on the entirety of human progress, dozens of times, and still have more time left to come up with a solution than has passed in all of human history. The monumental fuck up would be wiping out humanity entirely, which we could get done with current technology, but we do seem to have navigated that one so far. Couldn't the immortality package help one overcome obstacles such as extreme heat or any other natural occurrence? At some point you'd just have to push off what little matter is left at the point where its gravity could no longer contain you, and you'd glide endlessly through space until you get pulled into another entity's gravitational field. Odds are you'd end up getting pulled into a star or black hole, but there's a microscopic chance you could land on another inhabited planet. Pretty slim odds though. I am 99.9999% sure we will have colonized another planet by the time the sun expands. 1 billion or so years is a long fucking time for technology to improve. Hell, we might even be able to move the entire planet. Theoretically, 1 million immortal people means the best choices would be doctors, scientists, biologists, and the kind of people who could establish new life on another planet. They'd be able to fly for as long as the ship had power, which if it was somehow solar powered could be forever, until they found a new place for us to survive. Immortality would hopefully afford them plenty of time to become interstellar. Living forever also means living forever into the death of the universe. That would fucking suck. Make Elon Musk immortal and he will save the planet. Well, if you can't die, then your requirements for space exploration have been drastically reduced. You no longer need food or water or even air. Yeah, the vacuum of space so cold, and it'd be uncomfortable for sure, but it wouldn't kill you. The only real requirement is that you can get in and out of a planet's atmosphere. You could strap yourself to a nuclear-powered rocket and just zoom around the universe for all eternity. Heck, we could probably do this now. Now that's an unfathomable amount of time from now. You think we won't find a new universe to hot to by then? Assuming it's possible, of course. If I'm immortal, I'm just going to launch myself towards another habitable planet with some of my immortal friends.
Hey Cobber, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the content.